Mrs. Kajwang'I.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this motion, and this is an excellent motion. This motion is not about disbandment of CDF. This motion is not an affront on the National Government Affirmative Action Fund, and it is not a battle with the county governments. This motion is about the children of this nation. Mr. Speaker, Kenya is a signatory to the SDGs, and SDG number 4 requires that by 2030, all girls and boys should have access to free, quality primary and secondary education. Unfortunately, Kenya is off track to achieving that goal, despite having Vision 2030, which has similar aspirations. Mr. Speaker, the CS education was here about 3 weeks ago, and you do recall the CS saying that they have not done the mathematics to confirm how much a child will require for training in primary and secondary school. And I thought that was very disturbing, because if you have not costed what it takes to train a primary school pupil or a secondary school student, then how then do you finance? How then do you even ask for a budget? If you look at the current capitation at primary school, it's a mere 1,440 shillings. You can imagine, Mr. Speaker. I know there was a minister who is now a governor who said, what is 1,400 when nurses were on strike? Because he said that can barely cover his lunch at Serena Hotel. But that is what we are allocating to our children in primary school, 1,440 in terms of capitation. And so, Speaker, the CS again told us that when he asks for the budget, he does not get it allocated fully. This country is earning so much money from diaspora remittances. Now, let's ask ourselves, what is this product that is getting us forex from foreign countries? It is labor. And that labor is not just rough, raw labor. It is labor that has been incubated in an education system that this country has maintained since independence, or since the days of colonialism. I went to the state of Minnesota in the US. The gentleman who runs the state health or medical program is a Kenyan. Mr. Speaker, when I met him again, he told me he's now the president of doctors and physicians in the entire state of Minnesota. Then I asked him, where did you get your training from? He told me he went to the University of Nairobi. He got a job in the US, and he advanced. It means that Kenya at some point was producing, it was an industrial zone for production of highly skilled labor and highly skilled workforce. But with this allocation of 1,400 per capita to our children in primary school, are we ever going to produce another head of the medical fraternity in an American state of Minnesota? Mr. Speaker, the funds that are scattered all over the place, if you are to put them together, you don't need to be a rocket scientist. That it would be adequate for us to increase the capitation per child. It will be adequate for us to provide the means of implementation towards free primary and secondary education. And the funds are so many. We've got the Higher Education Loans Board. I recently met someone from the University Fund. You've got so many. And each corporate entity, Mr. Speaker, as part of their corporate social responsibility, now they are doing education bursaries and scholarships. And of course, they are very good. For example, Equity's Wings to Fly has allowed a lot of people who would not have seen the inside of a university hall to get to university, to fly, to get job opportunities in the banking and financial services sector. We laud them. But what about these government programs? You find that even the constituency bursaries, in some cases, a child gets a bursary for the first term and has to apply for the second term. It is as if in the first term he didn't have parents, and now in the second term he has parents. A child applies for funding in Form 1, and in Form 2 he has to apply again. There are a lot of tools, Mr. Speaker. There's a lot of artificial intelligence, there's a lot of technology that we can use to be able to map and identify the needy and hold their hands throughout the education journey. Mr. Speaker, this motion, and I've heard even my colleagues in the other house say that the Senate has brought this to fight the CDF program. This is not a fight against the CDF. This is a fight for the children of this nation. If we are going to continue producing doctors, if we are going to continue producing experts in the service industry. In the East African region, you go to Uganda, go to the hotels, go to Serena in Uganda, you will find that it is run by Kenyans. If you go to the financial services industry, Mr. Speaker, I was part of the diaspora who was in the financial services industry in neighboring East African countries. It's Kenyans. You go all the way to Rwanda, people who are running their municipalities and cities and logistics and transport systems, they are Kenyans. You go to England, United Kingdom, the people who are running their metropolitan transport systems are Kenyans. But are we going to continue exporting that kind of quality? Mr. Speaker, I am dismayed that we are now changing our focus as a nation towards training, cheap training at 1,400 per head per year, and then telling our children to be happy with being guards, with being house girls, and with doing manual jobs in the Far East and in Europe. A country's pride must be shown in the kind of jobs that it goes out to prospect for. And Mr. Speaker, it is not a matter of national pride for a president or for any minister to go out and look for any job for my people. There has to be national pride. Kenya has had that hallowed position as a leader when it comes to innovations, when it comes to technology, when it comes to education. And that can only happen, Mr. Speaker, consistently if we provide the means of implementation. The means of implementation for an education system that continues to produce leaders like the one I've talked about in Minnesota would be to have teachers who are motivated. Today, Mr. Speaker, we are told that 56,000 teachers have been recruited by the national government. And when I go to my county of Homa Bay, because I would have assumed that that 56,000, if you divide by 47, at least you'll have 10,000 teachers per county. I cannot find them, I cannot trace them. And I wonder where these teachers are coming from. We must have teachers who are motivated, and we must have teachers who are well remunerated. And that is across all levels, from primary to secondary to university. We must have infrastructure. So, Speaker, our public institutions' infrastructure leaves a lot to be desired. We must have infrastructure that is built at a price that is reasonable and is not another opportunity to steal money through procurement. We must have a curriculum that can stand to the test of international trends and norms. So, Speaker, I wonder why we want to do a customized, homegrown Kenyan curriculum. Why can't we benchmark and pick the best curriculum in the world and expose our children to it so that our children can go and compete with children in the US? And I know that a child who comes from Laikipia, a child who has been born and raised in hardships, if you are to give them the same opportunity, same curriculum that the American students will have, that Laikipia child is going to shine, because he knows that that is his only route out of adversity. Why do we build this curriculum, which I was asking my brother, Senator, for Kitui, because we are parents. My child is in grade 6. Which exam will take him to Alliance? I have no idea. In the past, it used to be the grade 8 exam, which will take you to Alliance, Maseno, take you to Jamhuri, take you to Shimolatewa. I do not know how my son is going to end up at Alliance, or whether he's going to end up at Jamhuri, or whether he's going to end up at Pandipieri Primary School in Kisumu. Because these things are not clear. We are tinkering and playing around with the curriculum and therefore messing up the future of our children and also denying them competitiveness in the global scale. Mr. Speaker, I don't know whether our CBC curriculum and our graduates will find it easy to get into foreign universities and foreign institutions. What some countries have done is you take IGCSE, take the American system, take another globally recognized system, just customize it a little so that your children are at par with other children in the world. We also need pupils, Mr. Speaker. And these pupils, even though you are going to provide teachers and classrooms and books, they need to have food in the stomach. And so we must also have a national feeding program for certain areas of this country where food is a rumor, unlike places like Nairobi where food is plenty. And we also need a culture that values hard work. Mr. Speaker, the overnight riches, the overnight arrogance, the overnight transition, the conversion of souls to polls in our political system, Mr. Speaker, it is disheartening a lot of people. Yesterday, people were consistently for the people. Today, they are consistently for the ruling classes. Mr. Speaker, we must build a culture where our children believe that it is only hard work that is going to take you somewhere, not a ministerial appointment, not liaison with those in government. And that is a culture that we are lacking. And so someone can decide to go and procure a degree certificate in a university that does not exist, and then you can go to court, and then they compromise the court, and then they are in office. What then motivates a child to go and get a university degree genuinely if he's seeing the rich and powerful have acquired degrees of dubious nature? Mr. Speaker, the last means of implementation is finances, and this is what this motion is calling for. And Mr. Speaker, I support this motion, and I hope that we can have legislation. This country, we know what should be done. We are just too lazy to do it. And sometimes we are lazy to do it because we want to get rents from some of these things. We were told a story about ghost schools when Mwai Kibaki started the free primary education. Mr. Speaker, the scandal of ghost schools when Mwai Kibaki started free primary education, if you read that report, you'll be alarmed. How billions of shillings were siphoned to private accounts. People just established virtual schools and were sending money to them. We hope that those bad things are not going to happen. We must tighten the accountability and transparency mechanisms to ensure that every child is entitled to free quality education.